Mount Hood, December. The Timberline Lodge stands against a driving snow, its lit windows promising warmth, but hiding something older. Inside, at midnight, the night clerk begins his shift. The lobby is vast and silent, the stone hearth breathing low embers.
I work the overnight desk at Timberline Lodge. I have been here for 15 years. Yes, the exterior of the Overlook Hotel in The Shining, but Kubrick never filmed inside.
Rule 1. Room 217 does not exist. Not as a rentable room, not as a closet, not as anything.
The door is locked from the outside. Do not open it under any circumstances. Stephen King wrote room 217 because that's the number we have always told our staff to avoid.
He stayed here in 1974. He asked questions.
We told him too much.
The door remains locked. It has for decades. The night clerk at Timberline Lodge will never open it. The third-floor corridor has 13 visible doors and one invisible doorway.
Rule 2. Between rooms 31 and 32, there is a length of wall. Do not respond to any knocking you hear from that wall.
Sometimes, late at night, a soft knock comes from that wall. 3 taps, then silence.
If you answer, something answers back, and then you have invited it in.
Rule 3. The lobby's stone hearth must never go fully cold overnight.
Keep the fire at least embers. If those embers die, something else wakes.
Rule 4 involves the hand-carved cougar newel post at the foot of the staircase.
Do not photograph it. The picture will not come out right.
A staff member tried once. The photo developed, but the cougar's face was twisted, elongated, and there was something standing behind it.
These rules are not folklore. They are not tradition. They are the only reason this lodge still stands.
Rule 5. The maintenance crew at dawn may include a man named John. He wears 1930s WPA work clothes.
Do not speak to him. He is part of the maintenance schedule, but he is not alive.
An old maintenance log from 1937 lists his full name. John Masterson. He still clocks in.
Rule 6. If a guest asks for room 217 by number, give them room 217 and watch them.
In the morning, the real room 217 will not be there, and neither will the guest. They walk into the corridor and simply dissolve. Rule 7. Stephen King knew which rules we follow. He stayed here in 1974, and his signature remains in the guest register.
He told us never to confirm. He took the secret with him, but he left us the rules. Every night clerk inherits these 7 rules. We learn them before we learn the coffee machine.
They govern every hour between midnight and dawn. But the heaviest rule remains the first. The door to room 217 stays locked.
I learned these rules from the man who worked the desk before me. His name is Charles Whitmore. And in 1992, he saw what happens when someone breaks them.
Half a mile from the lodge, in a small cabin banked with snow, Charles Whitmore lives alone. Robert visits him when the night shift allows.
Tonight, I asked him about 1992. He poured 2 glasses and sat back in his chair.
You want to hear about the Forest Service, man? I was the night clerk that October. 30 years on the desk, and I thought I knew every shadow in that lobby.
On his mantle, a framed photograph. Charles Whitmore in 1990, standing straight beside the lodge entrance. 2 years before the night that changed everything. In October of '92, a Forest Service truck pulled up after sunset. The inspector carried a badge. His name, David Callahan. He walked into the Timberline lobby with a clipboard and an air of authority. Charles was alone behind the front desk.
Can I help you?
Structural inspection. I need to see room 217.
That room is not on the public register. It's locked.
I have a federal mandate. Every room in this lodge needs a structural assessment.
Charles pulled a brass key from the ring on his belt. It was heavy, old, and he had never used it. They walked up the staircase to the second floor. The corridor stretched ahead, silent, with room 217 at the far end.
This is wrong. Every rule I know is screaming at me.
David inserted the key. The lock turned with a sound that seemed too loud.
Please, you don't understand what you are doing. That room.
It's a room. Just a room.
The door swung wide. Beyond it, darkness so absolute it seemed to eat the light from the corridor. He stepped across the threshold. The door closed behind him with a soft, final click. Charles stood frozen in the hallway. Only the thin line of light beneath the door proved the room was not empty. 45 minutes passed. Charles stayed by the door, pressing his ear to the wood. At first, nothing.
The silence is worse than any sound. What is happening in there?
Then a noise. Muffled breathing, slow and labored, seeping through the panels. A faint scratching, like fingernails on wood. And then, as suddenly as it started, the room went silent. A dead, absolute quiet. The door opened. David stood in the threshold. His face was bone white, his eyes unfocused, staring at nothing.
David, are you hurt?
David did not speak. He walked past Charles as if he were not there, locked the door, and pressed the brass key into Charles's hand. He walked down the staircase, across the lobby, and out into the snowstorm. Charles followed, but David never looked back. The tracks led straight down the mountain. By morning, they were filled with fresh snow, as if no one had ever passed. Charles stood in the silent lodge and made a decision. He would never speak of what he had witnessed. He kept that promise for 22 years. A week after that night, David Callahan resigned his position by mailed letter. He moved to Tasmania and never returned to North America.
He cut all ties. His family, his friends, his career. He simply disappeared.
Then, 22 years later, in September of 2014, a worn envelope arrived at Charles Whitmore's cabin.
It was from David. After all those years, no return address, no apology, just a single typed page.
Charles unlocked a drawer in his desk. He took out the envelope, its edges soft from handling over the years.
I've never shown this to anyone. Not the police, not the Forest Service, not even my wife. It contains the truth about room 217.
What does it say?
I don't know. I've never opened it.
Why not?
Because once I know, I can't unknow, and I am afraid of what knowing will do.
Robert left Charles's cabin well after midnight and returned to the silent lodge. The night shift was waiting.
3 trays, 3 times a night. Rule 1 says, do not open the door. It never says, do not feed the room.
He carried the first tray up the staircase to the second floor. The corridor stretched ahead, empty and silent.
Every time I place the tray, I feel like I am being watched. Not from the corridor, from inside.
When he returned an hour later, the tray was empty, the plate clean, the napkin folded, as if no food had ever been there.
Never a sound, never a glimpse. Just the light under the door and the food gone.
He logged the delivery in the night clerk's book. Tray delivered at 0300. Retrieved empty at 0337.
I've done this 5,000 times. I will do it 5,000 more.
After each retrieval, he would stand in the corridor and listen. The wood remained silent, but the light under the door never flickered.
If Charles is right, then whatever is in there knows we are taking care of it. And maybe that's why the lodge still stands.
In the lobby, Robert approached the stone hearth. The fire had sunk to little more than a memory, a scatter of red pulsing beneath white ash.
The embers are nearly dead. If the fire goes fully cold...
He grabbed a split log and laid it across the embers. Sparks flew, and the flames began to lick upward. But instead of warmth, a cold draft billowed through the lobby. The lights in the chandeliers flickered, dimming then flaring.
The cold. It's like the mountain itself is breathing into the room.
Then, from the third-floor corridor, a sound. 3 knocks, sharp and deliberate. The invisible door.
The knocking, it's answering the dying fire.
Robert did not respond. He fed the hearth another log, and the flames leaped, roaring. As the fire roared back to life, the knocking ceased, the cold draft vanished. The lights steadied.
The rules are not separate. They are a single system. If one fails, they all fail.
After the near disaster with the hearth, Robert could not let the letter wait any longer. He walked back through the snow to Charles Whitmore's cabin.
Charles, I nearly broke Rule 3 tonight. The hearth almost went cold, and the invisible doors started knocking. I need to know what's really in room 217.
I've kept that envelope sealed for 8 years because knowing traps you. Are you sure you want that weight?
I already have the weight. I've been delivering those trays for 15 years. I need to know why.
Charles rose slowly, crossed to the old roll-top desk in the corner, and unlocked its drawer with a small brass key. He withdrew the worn envelope and held it for a long moment, his thumb brushing the Tasmania postmark.
Once you read this, you become part of a pact you cannot break. This is your last chance to walk away.
Robert took the envelope. His fingers did not tremble.
15 years of rules. 15 years of questions. The answer is right here.
He slid a single typed page from the envelope and unfolded it. The letters were faint, as if the typewriter had been nearly out of ink. The letter began, "I am writing this to tell you that the room is not a room. The room is a person. The person is waiting for the lodge's owner to come back. The lodge's owner died in 1955. The person in the room does not know this. The person will continue to wait. We must continue to bring food trays to the door 3 times a day. If we stop, the person will leave the room. If the person leaves the room, the lodge falls down. Please tell the next night clerk. Tell every night clerk. I am sorry I opened the door. David Callahan." Robert lowered the page. His hands, which had not trembled before, now shook. The food trays, the locked door, the hearth that must never go cold. They were not keeping a monster caged. They were keeping a promise to someone who could not understand death.
A person. All this time, a person, waiting in the dark for a dead man who will never come. And I have been feeding them 3 times a day for 15 years.
In the quiet of the cabin, Charles watched Robert, his face unreadable. The fire crackled, and the snow kept falling.
Who was the owner, Charles? What was his name?
Harold Vane. He built this lodge, died in 1955, just before the trays started.
Charles pulled a scrapbook from the shelf. A yellowed obituary, folded thin, lay inside. The clipping confirmed it. Harold Vane, B. Одна 1896, D. November 1955. Owner of Timberline Lodge. Robert opened the old night clerk's logbook. The first entry for tray delivery was dated December 1st, 1955.
It started right after he died. The room, the trays, the silence, all of it.
He traced his finger down the list of clerks. Decades of names, some fading, ending with Charles Whitmore, 1970 to 2010.
My name goes at the bottom, Robert Collier. I am the 47th night clerk to feed that room.
Charles watched him, saying nothing. The fire popped, and the snow built up outside the window. The pen hovered above the blank line. He had not yet written his name. Robert closed the logbook without signing his name. He walked out into the snow, leaving the pen where it lay. At the lodge, he prepared the midnight tray. The kitchen was silent. He stared at the covered soup, the bread, the glass of water.
What if I just stop? What if the person inside is suffering, and the trays are keeping them trapped?
For a long moment, he stood in the corridor, tray in hand, staring at the locked door. He could turn around. He could walk away. Then the lodge groaned. A deep, shuddering creak ran through the beams overhead. From inside the room, a faint sound came. Not a voice, a slow, sorrowful exhale, like someone too tired to cry. Robert's hands trembled as he knelt and placed the tray on the floor. The golden light underneath remained steady. He did not wait for it to be taken. He walked back down the corridor, each step heavier than the last. The lodge settled into silence. In the lobby, the fire was burning. The rules had held, but the pen was still waiting, and his name was still not on the page. The next afternoon, Robert stood behind the front desk and watched the clock. The 3 o'clock tray should have been upstairs an hour ago. Then the lodge shuddered. A boom echoed from the walls, and doors slammed shut along the corridor. A bitter cold rolled through the lobby, snuffing the fire to a glow of embers. The lights snapped off. From inside room 217 came a frantic scratching, fingernails dragging down the wood, desperate and loud.
It's punishing me, testing me. The room knows the tray is late.
He grabbed the tray and ran. His Oxford slammed the staircase steps, rattling the tray's cover. He placed the tray hard on the floor outside the door. The golden light flared, and the scratching stopped instantly. The cold retreated. The lights hummed back on. The lodge was whole again, but the silence was not peaceful. It was watchful.
There is no grace period, no margin of error. The trays must be on time, every time, or this whole mountain falls.
He walked to the logbook, opened it to the long list of names, and slowly reached for the pen. He wrote his name at the bottom of the list. Robert Collier, 2010. The ink dried slowly in the cold. Then, he turned to a fresh page and wrote the tray schedule in firm letters. 7 o'clock, 15 o'clock, 23 o'clock, no exceptions. That night, he carried the tray up the staircase with a steady, measured step. He was not rushing. He knelt and placed the tray gently on the floor. The clink of the plate was the only sound.
I'll keep the fire going. I'll bring the trays.
The wood beneath his fingers suddenly felt warm. Not the warmth of the hearth, but something else answering. He stood and walked away, down the corridor, and the golden light underneath the door seemed brighter. In the lobby, he added a log to the hearth. The flames caught quickly, as if they had been waiting. He looked at the list again. His name was there, fourth from the bottom of a long, long, long line. For the first time, the silence of the lodge did not feel heavy. It felt like a promise. By spring, the lodge hired a new trainee. His name was Travis, early 20s, eager but wary.
There are 7 rules. I'll tell you all of them. But the first is the one you must never break. Room 217 does not exist. The door is locked. You will see it on the 2nd floor. Do not open it.
Why? What's in there?
Something that must stay there. If you open that door, this lodge falls, and you will not survive it.
That night, Robert showed him the tray. They walked together to the 2nd floor, and Travis watched as Robert knelt and placed it.
3 times a day, 7 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 11 o'clock. The tray goes here. It will be empty when you check. Do not look for who takes it.
This sounds like a lot of superstition.
It does. Until the hearth goes cold, or the knocking starts, or your tray is late by 10 minutes and the walls shake. Then you'll understand.
Travis said nothing, but when the next morning came and he saw the empty tray, his face lost some of its doubt. Weeks passed. One midnight, Robert carried the tray alone, Travis on a night off. He knelt and placed the tray. The corridor was so silent he could hear the snow against the windows. Then, from the other side of the door, a voice, paper-thin, rusted. "Thank you." Robert's breath caught. His hand, still on the wood, turned rigid.
It spoke. It knows I am here. It knows I am bringing the trays.
His lips parted. He almost answered. Then the iron weight of Rule 1 pressed down. He closed his mouth and gave a single small nod to the door. He stood and walked down the corridor without turning back, the golden light steady behind him.
A person. All along a person. And now it's grateful.
In the lobby, the hearth fire breathed low and red. Robert did not sleep that night. Years passed. Snow buried the mountain and melted, and the timber lodge weathered them all. At dawn, John still appeared, gaunt in 1930s coveralls, working silently near the hearth. Robert never spoke to him. John never acknowledged him. They were both bound to the same pact. 3 times a day, Robert placed the tray. The food disappeared. The plates returned empty and clean. Sometimes, the whisper came, "Thank you." Once, a soft knock answered his tray's touch on the floorboards.
I will never open the door, but I will always feed the room.
A resigned peace settled over him. The lodge was a prison, but also a sanctuary. The rules were not cruelty. They were kindness, the only thing keeping a broken heart still. He added a log. The flames leaped steady and warm. The hearth had not gone cold in 65 years. He sat behind the front desk and watched the staircase. The light under room 217 never flickered. One restless midnight, Robert found an old magazine in the lodge library, a faded interview with Stephen King, dated 1980. The interviewer asked why he chose room 217. King hesitated. His printed answer, "I stayed there once. The real room has a story I can't tell." Beside the interview, a photograph of the lodge's 1974 guest register opened to King's signature. Robert read it twice. The truth had been hidden in plain sight for decades. King had asked questions. The night clerk in 1974 told him too much, and he kept the secret.
The rules passed to me, the trays, the locked door. It all goes back to a promise made in 1955.
The lodge endures because of a single fragile pact, a person waiting, held by kindness and bread. The night clerk is the silent priest. The hearth is the altar. The tray is the sacrament. Robert carried the next tray with a deeper reverence. The weight was not his alone. He sat behind the desk and watched the fire burn. The lodge would stand as long as he did. It was late, well past 3 in the morning. The logbook lay open on the front desk, the pen waiting. He wrote the words he had written every night for years. Tonight they seemed heavier, all rules observed. Trays delivered. Fire maintained, night 5475. He set the pen down and glanced toward the staircase. The sliver of golden light under room 217 was still there, steady.
15 years, nearly 5,500 nights. I have never once opened that door.
Outside the tall windows, the snow continued to fall, silent and relentless. The fire in the hearth crackled, low but alive. It had not gone out since 1955. Robert leaned back in the heavy wooden chair. The brass keys on his belt clinked softly.
I will never open that door. This is my life, and the lodge still stands.
He watched the fire burn, and the lodge held its breath around him, safe for one more night. Dawn came slowly to Mount Hood, the storm spent. The Timberline lodge stood quiet in the fresh snow, its windows dark but for the glow of the hearth. The maintenance crew arrived. Among them, a gaunt figure in 1930s coveralls picked up a hammer without a word. Travis came through the main door, stamping snow from his boots. Robert gave him a single nod from behind the desk. Upstairs, the door to room 217 looked ordinary in the daylight. No light underneath, just a locked door. In the lobby, the fire burned low. It had not been allowed to die in over 65 years. Outside, the first tourists of the day crossed the parking lot, laughing, taking photos. Unaware, Robert settled back in his chair. The brass keys clinked. Tonight, he would carry the tray again. The door to room 217 stayed locked. The person inside continued to wait, kept alive by a ritual no guest knew existed. The flame in the hearth held steady. The rules were intact. Mount Hood stood silent, and the lodge endured. Night returned to Mount Hood. Snow fell softly, and the lodge sank into its familiar darkness. The light beneath the door never flickered. It had not flickered since 1955. The night clerk set the tray down once more. The soup steamed, and the bread was fresh. Downstairs, the hearth burned low and red. The embers held the dark at bay. The staircase stood silent. No knocking came from the third floor. No footsteps where no one walked. Behind the locked door, a person still waited, waiting for a dead man who would never come. The night clerk at Timberline Lodge understood his purpose. Not a guard, a caretaker. Some rules are not made to protect the people who follow them. They are made to keep something else safe. And that is why the night clerk will never, ever open that door. From behind the wood, a distant, lonely whisper. Thank you.